Okay. So, let me not smile because this again, I could really do a content warning for this entire show because now this particular story does not necessarily involve police brutality, but it is more so of an example of how police are not the providers of public safety and how the way that they engage on the roadways can put more people at risk sometimes than the people that they are actually trying to apprehend. So this story actually occurred somewhat local to me in Northern Virginia, in Fauquier County, Virginia. How the fuck you get to Fauquier County? Fauquier County, it's kind of like in the what do they call those? The exoburbs, a little bit on the far end of the Northern Virginia DC suburbs. Okay, it is a Browning County, but it's still very much white and somewhat rural, though it is developing pretty quickly. So this story involves a high speed car crash involving a teen driver. But the reason I'm bringing you this story is because the police failed not once but twice in what could have prevented the death of an 18-year-old girl who was a passenger in this vehicle when police attempted to stop the vehicle because the driver was going about 100 miles per hour. The chase actually accelerated and resulted in the death of this young girl. So let's get the story from NBC4 Washington. Check out the package. This is reporter Julie Carey. Julie Carey could have asked a couple more questions in this shit too, but I'll get to that once we finish viewing her package. Just take a look.
One died when her boyfriend drove a car into a moving train early yesterday morning. According to the Fauquier County Sheriff's Office, the driver sped away from deputies going 115 miles per hour. Minutes later, they say he crashed into a train on Route 17 in Delaplane. Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Julie Carey spoke with the victim's family about their loss.
Hugs and tears and deep sadness for the family of 18-year-old Haidan Smallwood. Just a few months ago, there was celebration as she graduated from Clark County High School, and she'd just been accepted to Liberty University to start online classes with the plan to study nursing.
She was so proud of herself.
These are pictures of the crash that claimed her life early Wednesday morning. Her boyfriend, Jeremiah Greenfield, behind the wheel when he drove the car right into a moving train. The Fauquier Sheriff's Office says the trouble began when a deputy clocked the Honda going nearly 100 in a 55 zone and began a pursuit. A second deputy later joining, speeds reaching 115 miles per hour. Fauquier County officials say the deputies had already called off the pursuit twice and in fact lost sight of the speeding car by the time it reached the railroad crossing. Even though this warning signal was flashing and cars were stopped at the crossing, investigators say Greenfield crossed the center line, drove around the cars, and struck the train. Greenfield and a backseat passenger were injured. Haidan died at the hospital. The tragedy made even worse when the family found out how it happened.
Thinking about the terror, like she had to be terrified. I just can't imagine what she was feeling and what she was thinking.
State police discovering after the crash the car had been stolen. His family says Greenfield told Haidan he'd paid cash for it. Now grief mixed with anger.
I'm so mad. Because it was intentional. He intentionally took my baby from me.
I'd like to see him get justice for it. You know what I mean? She didn't deserve this. He could have just pulled over, let her out.
This family also raising questions about another incident 3 days earlier. They say court records show Greenfield was pulled over in Clark County driving the same car without a license. They want to know why he was given a summons and not arrested. Reporting for News 4, I'm Julie Carey.
I want to send condolences going out to Hayden's family and her friends. You can tell that that is a very painful thing to lose a recent high school graduate, an 18-year-old, in such a sudden and senseless way. Like, my heart really breaks for her family and her relative there who spoke, saying that the boyfriend should have just pulled over, which is correct. The boyfriend should have just pulled over. It would have been a hellacious ticket. It would have been a ginormous ticket. I mean, what are the? I'm not familiar with the laws of the Commonwealth, but I think in most states, if you're clocked going 20 over, 25, 30 over, 40 over, like they lock you up right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you cannot just be out here going 100 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. But the questions that I would like to have had better answered in this package, especially from the reporter there, Julie Carey, who's reporting, I usually am not offended by it. I won't even say I'm offended by this, but I feel as though oftentimes, the reporters just accept what the fuck the police say. Like, so one fact that she reported there is that the high-speed chase was called off twice. How you call it off twice if it should have been called off once? You know what I'm saying? Like, why didn't the police fall all the way the fuck back after the first time the chase was called off? How could the chase even have been allowed to be extended for such a time that it would have taken 2 times, 2 directives, 2 orders to call off this high-speed chase where speeds were 115 miles per hour? It doesn't sound as though the chase was called off the first time, right? At all. So why would I believe that it was called off at all or the second time? It said that deputies had lost sight of the vehicle by the time that it approached the train tracks. Interesting. So they were still in pursuit, sounds like. Okay. The other thing there that I thought was interesting, and this is how, let us circle this all on back to how police are not the guardians or the purveyors of public safety. So allegedly, according to this report, the young man who was the driver, Wakefield, I can't remember his first name, last name Wakefield, was pulled over by police in the same car that crashed, that he was driving when it crashed into the moving train. And Virginia State Police have said that the car was stolen. So it wasn't acknowledged as stolen when he was stopped 3 days prior by Fauquier County deputies. Like, there's a gap in the facts right there. You know what I'm saying? The young man was cited for driving without a license, which again, I thought was some shit you could get locked up for. You know what I'm saying? You get pulled over failure to, driving without a license. Now, I don't know if he actually did not physically have his physical license on his person or he didn't have a license at all. Like, I needed a little bit more clarity on that. Failure, driving without a license, I thought was an arrestable offense on the spot, right? Especially if you don't have one. But okay, let's assume that that wasn't the case. So the family is upset that the young man wasn't arrested at that time. And in fact, he was just cited. But what about the car? Like, the car didn't raise any red flags for police. So the fact that this young man was basically riding dirty, bad license or no license, car, sketchy ownership, had the police done their due diligence and actually enforced the law in that instance, that young man may not have been available this week to be driving 100 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. And I don't think, Will, help me if you don't mind, I don't think they showed the young guy's picture in that, right? They named him, but they didn't show his photo. Because you know where I'm going with this, but I just want to be clear that I didn't miss something, because sometimes I miss shit. I don't think they showed his picture, but I'm going to assume, and y'all know I will stand corrected if I'm wrong. I'm going to assume this young man was white. And I can only assume that he's white because I know that 18-year-old black kids get caught driving without a license is getting locked the fuck up. Okay, in Fauquier County, shit. But the racial biases in which traffic stops are enforced, and to whether or not, the full extent of what the police can do right there at the side of the road, it varies depending on your race, your gender, your socioeconomic status. Something crawling on me. I think there's mice. Not mice, Jesus, not a mouse. Like an ant. Okay, no, it was a strap. I'm like, what is tickling my arm? But you guys understand what I'm saying. So I can understand the family should be furious. The family should be upset. And not only should they be upset at the person that inevitably took the life of their daughter, took the life of their child, they need to be upset with the police for failing to do their fucking job. For in not one but two ways. They could have got this menace off the street 3 days ago, 3 days prior to the accident. They didn't. And the night of the accident, it was very clear that this driver, this young person, young Mr. Wakefield, had no intentions of stopping for the cops. And yet they pursued anyway. Pursued to the point where the chase had to be called off not once but twice. And to me, sounds like a fucking lie. That sounds like a lie. Because the police may have, according to them, because we know they lie, the police claim that they lost sight of the vehicle, but that means that you were still on a trail. Not to say that they shouldn't have been, but once a driver is established and demonstrated that they are prepared to go all the way, whatever the fuck that means, in order to not be apprehended by the police, it is the police's duty to turn off. You have to, like, that's a L you got to take in the moment there, Mr. Cop. You got to take that L in the moment, whatever that L, and that's not even really an L, so to speak. You would have had the opportunity to give somebody a fat ticket. Let's assume on the side of police altruism that that they were pursuing and continuing this pursuit in order to get a dangerous driver off the road. Okay, I get that. But once the dangerous driver has made it very apparent that they intend to be more dangerous with you on their ass, in the interest of public safety, you have to fall the fuck all the way back. You're not going to catch that driver tonight. I'm sorry. And without question, this young person, this young man showed just reckless abandon, a willful disregard for the life of everyone in his vehicle, himself included, everyone that was on the road. Just recklessness all around. And even at 18, he should have known better. But the police there, in my opinion, should have done their job, got a unlicensed driver off the road prior to this incident, and the night of the incident should have had the wherewithal to understand that this was a person who was driving like they had nothing to lose. But the only person that lost is Haidan and her family. And I'm so sorry that happened to this young lady. It sounds as though the other passengers of the vehicle, they were all injured but taken to the hospital. And the other part, that's how I know this kid must be white, because no charges. He hasn't been charged. No charges. No charges. None. Not yet. Not to say that the charges aren't forthcoming. But they usually don't bullshit when charging black people. You understand? Like they got the charges lined up. You know, the district attorney, state's attorney is waiting at the jail for the police to finish processing this dangerous individual. And they ready to slap all the charges on. This kid ain't been charged days later with a body on his hands. Cops really ain't shit.